How did ancient civilizations move stones heavier than modern cranes can lift across miles of rugged terrain? What allowed them to cross vast oceans long before compasses or accurate maps existed? These aren't just questions, they're mysteries carved into the very foundations of lost cities and whispered in the echoes of forgotten roads. All around the world, from the jungles of Cambodia to the deserts of Egypt, there are clues, massive stone blocks positioned with impossible precision, ancient maps that shouldn't exist, routes that defy logic, yet no one can fully explain how they got there. Picture this, a single block of stone from the Great Pyramid weighs as much as 50 cars. Now imagine moving thousands of them hundreds of miles without wheels, pulleys, or even draft animals. Or consider the Polynesians who navigated the endless Pacific by reading stars and waves alone, finding tiny islands in an ocean that stretches for millions of square miles. These aren't just feats of engineering, they're puzzles that challenge everything we think we know about the past, and the deeper you dig, the stranger it gets. Secret tunnels beneath medieval castles, strange wheel ruts carved into bedrock leading nowhere, even legends of floating cities and vanishing ships that might hold fragments of truth. That's why today we're diving into 30 of history's most baffling transportation mysteries, cases where the how is just as mysterious as the why. Some will make you question the limits of human ingenuity. Others might hint at lost technologies we still don't understand, and a few are so bizarre they'll leave you wondering if we've missed something fundamental about our ancestors' world. So let's unravel these enigmas together, one astonishing discovery at a time, because the past isn't just about what we know, it's about what's still waiting to be found. Deep in the steaming jungles of Costa Rica, hidden beneath tangled vines and layers of earth, lie hundreds of near-perfect stone spheres, some as small as a grapefruit, others towering taller than a man and weighing as much as 2 elephants. These aren't rough boulders shaped by time, they're precision-crafted orbs, some with surfaces so smooth they reflect light like mirrors, scattered across the Diquis Delta like marbles dropped by giants. The mystery isn't just their flawless shape, it's how they got there. These spheres, carved from volcanic rock harder than steel, were moved miles through swamps and rainforests over 1,000 years ago. No wheels, no metal tools, not even evidence of sledges or ropes, yet somehow the pre-Columbian people who made them transported 16-ton stones up hills, across rivers, and into formations that still baffle archaeologists today. Some spheres sit in perfect straight lines, others form geometric patterns aligning with solstice sunrises, hinting they might have been celestial maps or sacred symbols. Then there's the real head-scratcher. Why go to such insane effort? Were they boundary markers for ancient kingdoms, ritual objects to channel divine energy? Or maybe something even stranger, like a forgotten language written in stone, waiting to be decoded. Local legends whisper the spheres were thrown by gods or grew from magical seeds. Scientists, meanwhile, can't even agree on how they were shaped. Some argue teams of workers ground them for decades with sand and water. Others insist there's evidence of advanced, unknown techniques, tools or methods lost to time. But here's the wildest part. When researchers tried moving a replica sphere using only prehistoric methods, it took 50 people, wooden rollers, and weeks of grueling work just to shift it a few hundred yards. Now imagine doing that with hundreds of spheres, some placed atop remote hillsides without leaving a single trace of how it was done. No worn paths, no broken tools. Just perfect stones in impossible places, silent as the jungle around them. It's as if the earth itself placed them there, or someone we still don't understand. On a remote island in the Pacific where cliffs drop sharply into crashing waves and the land rises in jagged hills, stand nearly 900 massive stone figures, some as tall as 5-story buildings, weighing more than 24 elephants combined. These are the Moai of Easter Island, and their creation is only half the mystery. The real question is how the Rapa Nui people moved these colossal statues up to 11 miles across fractured volcanic rock, without wheels, without beasts of burden, without even trees tall enough to make proper sledges. For decades, the most famous theory claimed the statues walked, that teams rocked them side to side with ropes, inching them forward like a fridge being tilted across a kitchen floor. But recent experiments shattered that idea. When researchers tried it with full-scale replicas, the Moai's bases eroded rapidly, leaving deep gouges in the earth that don't match the untouched paths leading to the island's actual statue sites. Worse, the statues would have toppled constantly under their own uneven weight. So if they didn't walk, how did they travel? Oral histories hold tantalizing clues. Rapa Nui elders speak of mana, a spiritual energy that guided the Moai to their places. Some legends describe the statues moving at night as if alive. Others mention sacred chants that lightened their load. Modern science offers a more grounded, yet no less ingenious explanation: log rollers. Not the classic rolling logs beneath a sled method, but something far smarter. Researchers found that grooved roads crisscross the island, perfectly spaced for teams to pivot heavy loads around tight corners. By lashing ropes to the Moai's head and base, workers could have steered them over lubricated wooden rails, using rhythm and coordination to prevent catastrophic slips. Yet even this leaves holes in the story. The island's deforestation suggests they'd have run out of logs long before finishing. And how did they lift the statues onto their iconic platforms afterward? Some platforms sit on steep inclines, requiring maneuvers that defy modern engineering simulations. The most bizarre detail: a few Moai were found face down along ancient roads as if abandoned mid-journey. Were they casualties of a lost technique, or did their mana simply run out? What's clear is this wasn't just brute strength, it was physics mastered through generations. The Rapa Nui didn't just move stone, they danced with it, and somewhere in the space between their oral histories and our scientific guesses lies a truth we're still straining to hear. High in the mountains of Lebanon, where the air smells of time and ancient dust, rests a ruin that defies logic: the Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek. Its columns stretch skyward like bones of forgotten giants, but the real wonders lie hidden beneath. 3 monoliths, each weighing more than 750 tons, equivalent to 2 fully loaded Boeing 747 jets, form the famous Trilithon. These stones aren't just stacked, they're fitted together so tightly you couldn't slide a razor blade between them. And here's the kicker: they were hauled uphill from a quarry half a mile away, over terrain rough enough to snap modern axles. The Romans claimed credit for Baalbek's grandeur, but the Trilithon's origins might be far older. Buried beneath the temple's foundation lies an even more baffling slab: the stone of the pregnant woman. Clocking in at nearly 1,000 tons, it's the largest carved monolith in human history. Just shaping it would have required bronze chisels pounding non-stop for decades, yet there's no evidence of tool marks. Even stranger, the quarry sits uphill from the temple. Moving these blocks would have meant lowering them down a slope, a task modern engineers call almost suicidal without steel cables and hydraulic brakes. So how was it done? One theory suggests armies of workers used log rollers and levers, straining against ropes woven from camel hide. Archaeologists calculate it would have taken 12,000 men just to budge the stone of the pregnant woman, an organizational feat rivaling the pyramid builders. But there's a problem. No ancient texts mention such an army, and the narrow quarry pathways would have made crowds useless. This gap in logic fuels wilder ideas. Local legends speak of jinn, supernatural beings carrying the stones at night. Others whisper of vibration techniques where sound waves temporarily soften the rock, making it flow like putty. Even mainstream scholars admit the Romans might have inherited the site from an older civilization that mastered lost lifting methods. After all, why would Rome's engineers, famous for documenting their techniques, leave zero records of moving these specific stones? Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in the quarry itself. The stone of the pregnant woman wasn't the finale. An even larger block, weighing 1,650 tons, sits half detached from the bedrock. It's as if the builders were interrupted mid-task, abandoning a project too ambitious even for them. Walking those ruins today, you're left with an eerie thought. If this was their unfinished work, what could they have achieved if given more time? And why does it feel like we're still missing a piece of their puzzle, one that might rewrite how we see ancient ingenuity? In the sweltering heat of Florida, far from the jungles of Costa Rica and the cliffs of Easter Island, stands a monument just as baffling: Coral Castle. This bizarre complex of massive coral blocks, some weighing more than 30 tons, was built by one man, a 5-foot-tall, 100-pound Latvian immigrant named Edward Leedskalnin. Working alone under cover of darkness between the 1920s and 40s, he quarried, carved, and arranged these colossal stones with no modern machinery, no visible tools, and no witnesses willing to explain how he did it. Leedskalnin claimed he'd unlocked the secrets of the pyramids, hinting at lost knowledge of magnetism or even anti-gravity. When asked how he moved such massive blocks, his answer was always cryptic: "I understand the laws of weight and leverage." But this wasn't just clever phrasing. The way he worked defies conventional physics. Witnesses reported seeing him float stones through the air like balloons, arranging them into perfect arches and walls with no mortar. One neighbor swore he saw coral blocks moving on their own in the moonlight, as if Leedskalnin had tamed gravity itself. The most unnerving part: modern engineers can't replicate his methods. When a crew tried recreating one of his feats, lifting a 9-ton obelisk, they needed a 70-ton crane. Yet Leedskalnin did it with nothing but a handmade tripod of telephone poles and a series of chains. His tools, found abandoned after his death, were laughably primitive: rusted car parts, a bent pickaxe, and homemade wedges. Experts who have studied Coral Castle admit that even with today's tech, duplicating his precision blocks fitted so tightly they resist hurricane winds and decades of erosion would be nearly impossible. Was it really ancient knowledge or something stranger? Leedskalnin left behind coded pamphlets filled with bizarre diagrams, suggesting he believed all matter was held together by individual magnets. Some researchers think he stumbled onto a form of acoustic levitation, using sound vibrations to neutralize weight, while others argue he simply mastered counterbalance techniques so refined they looked like magic. The truth might lie hidden in his final, unfinished project: a stone gate so perfectly balanced a child could spin it, yet so precisely cut it hasn't budged in decades. Before he died, he promised the secret was simple, buried in plain sight. But like the pyramids he revered, Coral Castle guards its mysteries fiercely. Standing in its shadow, you can't help but wonder, did this frail man really outsmart physics, or was he the last keeper of a truth much older than himself? Stretching across 450 square miles of Peru's bone-dry desert, the Nazca lines form a sprawling canvas of staggering precision, geoglyphs so massive they can only be fully appreciated from the sky. Monkeys with coiled tails longer than football fields, a hummingbird with wings that could cradle a jumbo jet, even a figure dubbed the astronaut, its helmeted head staring into the cosmos. These aren't just scratches in the earth, they're mathematical marvels with shapes so perfectly proportioned that modern engineers struggle to explain how the Nazca people, 2,000 years ago, plotted them without so much as a hot air balloon. The mystery deepens when you consider the logistics. Some lines run arrow straight for miles, deviating less than a single yard over their entire length, a feat requiring surveying knowledge thought impossible for the era. Others intersect with such accuracy that even a 1-degree miscalculation would have thrown the entire design into chaos. Yet somehow, using nothing but rudimentary tools and the naked eye, the Nazca achieved near-flawless symmetry across a landscape riddled with hills and gullies. Then there's the strangest clue of all, their pottery. Among artifacts recovered from Nazca sites are vessels depicting bizarre, kite-like contraptions, some with humanoid figures dangling beneath them as if mid-flight. Could these be artistic flights of fancy, or evidence they'd unlocked the secret of gliding, allowing overseers to direct workers from above? Mainstream archaeology dismisses the idea, pointing to the lack of physical evidence for aircraft. But alternative researchers note something peculiar. Many glyphs align with underground water sources, suggesting an intimate knowledge of the terrain that would have been near impossible to map from ground level alone. Perhaps the most compelling theory involves ropes and stakes, simple tools wielded with extraordinary skill. Experiments show that by anchoring a central cord and using basic geometry, teams could have plotted massive shapes incrementally, checking alignment with plumb bobs. Yet this doesn't explain the Nazca's most jaw-dropping feat, transporting massive quantities of reddish pebbles across the desert to create their designs. The darker stones, when removed, expose lighter soil beneath, forming stark visual contrasts. But hauling literal tons of material without beasts of burden or wheels would have been a logistical nightmare, unless they'd mastered some forgotten method of efficient transport. Local legends speak of the Viracochas, sky gods who walked among humans sharing knowledge. Could these stories preserve a kernel of truth, a cultural memory of aerial guidance? Or were the Nazca simply unparalleled surveyors, their lost techniques still outpacing our assumptions? Standing in that desert, staring down at a spider the size of a city block, one thing becomes clear: this wasn't art, it was a message, and we've only just begun to decipher it. The Great Pyramid's inner sanctum hides one of antiquity's most perplexing logistical puzzles, the King's Chamber coffers. Hewn from single blocks of red granite, these massive stone boxes weigh up to 50 tons each, with walls polished to near optical smoothness. But here's what'll make your jaw drop. The granite came from Aswan, a staggering 500 miles up the Nile. Transporting these slabs would be a Herculean task even today, yet the Egyptians did it 46 centuries ago without cranes, trucks, or even the wheel. Mainstream archaeology points to the Nile as the obvious highway. Granite blocks likely traveled by barge during flood season when higher water levels eased navigation. Reliefs at Jehu'tihotep's tomb depict a similar feat, a colossal alabaster statue hauled on a sled by 172 men, lubricated by water poured in its path. But here's where things get thorny. Unlike soft alabaster, granite is brutally dense. Modern engineers estimate moving a 50-ton slab this distance would require a barge the size of a basketball court, plus a pulling force equivalent to 600 men straining against ropes. Yet no evidence of such vessels exists in Egyptian records. Fringe theories suggest even wilder possibilities. Ancient astronaut enthusiasts highlight the pyramid's alignment with electromagnetic ley lines, proposing the granite could have been softened using harmonic resonance, a notion partially supported by experiments where sound waves reduced friction on stone blocks. More grounded but equally speculative is the water channel hypothesis. Some researchers argue the pyramid's construction site might have been crisscrossed by temporary canals, allowing barges to offload materials directly to higher elevations. Traces of silt in certain pyramid passages lend faint credibility to this idea, but the most baffling detail isn't the transportation, it's the precision. The coffer in the king's chamber fits the room so perfectly that there's less than half an inch of clearance on each side. This implies the Egyptians either dragged the granite block up the pyramid's ascending corridors, a geometrically impossible feat, without damaging the walls, or installed it during construction like some cosmic IKEA furniture. Neither scenario fully explains how they achieved millimeter-perfect placement in a space where modern laser levels struggle. Perhaps the most telling clue comes from the granite itself. Microscopic analysis reveals tool marks suggesting the Egyptians used circular saws, something never found in their archaeological record. The cuts are too clean for copper tools, even with abrasive sand. This has led maverick engineers like Christopher Dunn to propose advanced machining techniques, possibly involving vibration-assisted cutting. If true, it would mean the pyramid builders possessed technology we've yet to rediscover, a humbling thought when you stand beside those silent red stones still guarding their secrets after millennia. Perched above the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, the fortress of Sacsayhuamán looms like the jawbone of some stone giant. Its zigzagging walls built from limestone blocks so massive, the Spanish conquistadors believed they'd been erected by demons. Some stones weigh over 120 tons, yet they're fitted together with joints so precise, even 5 centuries of earthquakes haven't shifted them by a millimeter. Run your hand along the seams and you'll find no gaps, no mortar, just edges so sharp they could have been cut yesterday. The mystery isn't just the weight of these stones, it's their shapes. Each block is a unique, irregular polygon, some with 12 or more sides, yet they interlock like pieces of an otherworldly jigsaw puzzle. Modern architects using laser scanners have found that the angles deviate less than half a degree from perfect alignment. How did the Inca achieve this without iron tools, without the wheel, without even a written language to record their techniques? Local legends offer a clue as startling as the stones themselves. Inca oral histories describe a mythical plant or juice that could soften rock, allowing workers to mold it like clay before it hardened again. Spanish chroniclers recorded claims that birds, after pecking at certain herbs, could carve nests directly into stone cliffs. Could there be truth hidden in these tales? Experiments have shown that extracts from the sap of the Amazonian jagua plant, when combined with sunlight, can indeed etch limestone over time. Even today, Andean masons use a plant called sili to polish stone, a technique passed down through generations. But skeptics argue plant solvents couldn't explain the fortress's sheer scale. The largest block at Sacsayhuamán, a 25-foot-tall behemoth, would have required processing thousands of gallons of hypothetical stone-softening liquid. More plausible, perhaps, is the pecking method, artisans painstakingly shaping each stone by hammering with harder rocks, then grinding surfaces with sand. Yet this raises another paradox: why choose such backbreaking precision when simpler designs would have sufficed? The answer might lie in the wall's hidden genius. That zigzag pattern isn't just artistic, it's seismic armor. During earthquakes, the irregular joints dissipate shockwaves, making the structure virtually indestructible, a feat modern engineers call asperity theory. Maybe the Inca weren't just stacking stones, maybe they were weaving them, creating a fabric of rock that could dance with the earth itself. Standing in the shadow of those impossible walls, you're left with two haunting questions. Did they really tame stone with chemistry? Or did they possess a mastery of geometry so profound it borders on the supernatural? One thing's certain: these aren't just walls. They're a conversation between humanity and stone, written in a language we're still learning to read. Buried in the humid lowlands of Mexico's Gulf Coast, staring out from the undergrowth with unblinking eyes, stand 17 colossal stone heads, each one a portrait of an ancient ruler weighing as much as 4 adult elephants. These aren't just sculptures, they're logistical nightmares carved by the Olmecs, Mesoamerica's mother culture, over 3,000 years ago. The material alone defies belief: solid basalt quarried from the Tuxtla Mountains 50 miles away, a volcanic rock so hard modern sculptors need diamond-tipped tools to work it. Yet somehow, without metal implements or wheels, the Olmecs transported these 20-ton monoliths through swamps, across rivers, and into the heart of their cities, leaving behind no traces of their methods. The journey begins in the quarries, where Olmec workers likely used heat and water to fracture the basalt, pouring water on heated rock to exploit thermal stress cracks. But moving these giants, that's where the real puzzle kicks in. Between the mountains and Olmec sites like La Venta lies a labyrinth of rivers, marshes, and dense jungle. Mainstream theories suggest rafting the stones downstream during seasonal floods, lashed to balsa wood log floats. yet no remnants of rafts or ropes have ever been found. Even stranger, basalt isn't buoyant. A single head would have required a raft so massive. Its construction should have left evidence, so how did they stay afloat? One clue might lie in the heads themselves. Deep grooves circle the bases of several monuments, as if they'd been rolled, hinting at a technique where workers pivoted them onto log rollers, then walked them along like a barrel. But here's the catch. The nearest navigable river to La Venta is still 6 miles from the city center. That's 6 miles of dragging or rolling through mud so thick modern reconstruction attempts bogged down within yards. Perhaps the most haunting detail is what's missing. Unlike the Egyptians or Inca, the Olmecs left no depictions of transport scenes, no sledges or tools in their art. Their solution might have been so ingenious or so mundane that it never occurred to them to record it. Some researchers speculate they used woven reed cables, long decayed, to distribute weight evenly. Others point to the Olmec's mastery of hydraulics. Their cities were laced with artificial ponds and canals, suggesting they might have floated the heads on temporary watercourses. But the bigger question lingers: why go to such extremes? These weren't just monuments, they were power made tangible. Each head, with its unique helmet and snarling lips, represented a living ruler, his authority quite literally set in stone. Maybe the journey was part of the message. A king who could command mountains to walk would seem less like a man and more like a force of nature. Or maybe, like so much of the Olmec world, their true motives are carved in a language we've yet to decipher, whispered in the silent gaze of those stone faces, still waiting for someone to listen. Stretching across the wind-swept Breton coastline like a petrified army, the Karnak stones stand sentinel in eerie silence, 3,000 megaliths arranged in perfect rows spanning 2.5 miles. Some loom taller than a 2-story house, their 50-ton bulk defying time and gravity. But the real enigma isn't their size, it's the precision of their placement. Unlike Stonehenge's ritual circle or Easter Island's scattered moai, Karnak stones form dead straight lines like the teeth of a colossal comb raked across the earth. Local farmers once believed they were Roman soldiers turned to stone by a wizard. Geologists know better. These granite giants were quarried from outcrops over 20 miles inland, then somehow transported and erected around 4,500 years ago, long before the wheel arrived in Europe. The logistics boggle the mind. Each multi-ton block had to be extracted without metal tools, hauled across marshes and hills, then planted upright with exact spacing. Mainstream archaeology suggests wooden sledges and rollers, with teams dragging stones during winter freeze, thaw cycles when the ground was slick. But recent experiments reveal a glaring flaw. Even with 500 people pulling, the friction would have ground the sledges to splinters within miles. This has led to wilder theories, like the possibility Bronze Age builders used a form of acoustic lubrication, vibrating the stones with rhythmic chants or drumbeats to temporarily reduce friction. It sounds like fantasy until you visit Karnak and feel the site's strange energy for yourself. Because here's where things get truly weird. Scientific surveys show Karnak sits atop a confluence of electromagnetic anomalies. Compasses spin erratically near certain stones, underground streams create subtle magnetic disturbances, and some megaliths emit faint ultrasonic pulses, frequencies just above human hearing. Could these properties be accidental, or were they deliberately exploited? French engineer Joseph Fourier discovered in the 1800s that certain rocks at Karnak conduct electricity when wet, leading to speculation the site functioned as a primitive power grid. Even mainstream researchers admit the alignment isn't random. Many rows point directly to lunar standstill positions, suggesting the builders had advanced astronomical knowledge. Then there's the unspoken question: why go to such lengths? Unlike tombs or temples, Karnak's rows serve no obvious practical or religious purpose, unless, as alternative researchers propose, they were part of something far more ambitious. The sheer scale suggests a territory marker, but one aligned with invisible forces. Some stones have cup-shaped depressions that fill with water during rains, creating conductive paths. Others contain high concentrations of quartz, known to generate piezoelectric effects under pressure. Could Karnak have been a Bronze Age energy harvester, channeling telluric currents for purposes we've yet to comprehend? The most haunting clue lies in the landscape itself. The rows aren't isolated, they're part of a vast network stretching across Brittany, with similar alignments found underground via LiDAR scans. It's as if Karnak was just one node in a continent-spanning system, its true purpose eroded not by time, but by our own failure to recognize patterns outside modern logic. Stand among those stones at dawn, when the mist clings to their bases like spectral ropes, and you'll swear you can almost hear the echo of whatever machinery, natural or man-made, once hummed beneath your feet. The truth might not be carved in the rocks, but in the silent spaces between them. Buried beneath the dusty hills of southeastern Turkey, a series of carved limestone pillars rewrite humanity's architectural history. Gobekli Tepe predates Stonehenge by 6 millennia, built when our ancestors were still nomadic hunter-gatherers, long before the invention of writing or the wheel. Yet here stand 20-ton T-shaped monoliths arranged in precise circles, their surfaces adorned with intricate carvings of scorpions, lions, and vultures frozen mid-hunt. The logistics are mind-bending. Each pillar was quarried from bedrock over 300 yards away, then transported and erected with nothing but stone tools and human muscle. The real shock isn't just the weight, it's the timing. This wasn't the work of an empire with slave labor or even a settled farming community. Gobekli Tepe's builders were mobile bands of foragers, people we've always assumed lacked the organization for such monumental projects. So how did they do it? Experiments with replica pillars suggest teams could have rocked them onto log rollers using woven fiber ropes, then walked them into position with wooden levers. But here's the catch. The nearest forests were miles away, meaning every scrap of timber had to be hauled in first, a chicken and egg paradox that makes the site's existence even more improbable. Then there's the celestial connection. The pillars aren't placed randomly. Their arrangement mirrors constellations visible 11,000 years ago, particularly the Cygnus constellation, a pattern replicated across multiple enclosures. This implies the builders possessed astronomical knowledge rivaling later civilizations, tracking star movements without written records or even permanent settlements. Some researchers argue the T-shapes themselves are symbolic, representing stylized humans watching the cosmos, their flat heads aligned to catch the first rays of solstice sunrises. The wildest theory sound. Certain pillars bear peculiar cup marks that, when struck with mallet stones, produce distinct resonant frequencies. Archaeoacoustic studies suggest these vibrations could have been used to coordinate large groups during construction, a prehistoric version of heave-ho chants turned into a science. It's as if Gobekli Tepe's builders didn't just move stone, they communed with it, using rhythm and celestial patterns to achieve what should have been impossible for their era. What lingers most isn't the how, but the why. In a world where survival was day-to-day, why pour generations of effort into a site with no clear utilitarian purpose? Unless the purpose was something we've forgotten, a primal need to reach beyond the dirt and hunger, to carve meaning into the very bones of the earth. The pillars stand as a testament to that urge, their silent T-shapes whispering a question. Did civilization begin not with agriculture or cities, but with the irresistible pull to build something greater than ourselves? Off the coast of Japan's westernmost island, where the Pacific's currents carve dark trenches into the seafloor, lies a structure that shouldn't be there, the Yonaguni Monument. Rising like a stepped pyramid from 80 feet below the waves, its terraced walls form perfect right angles, its surfaces scarred with straight grooves that look unnervingly like tool marks. At first glance, it's easy to believe you're staring at the ruins of a drowned civilization. But the moment you dive deeper, the debate begins. Is this the work of ancient hands or just nature playing an elaborate geological trick? On one side are the geologists who point to the region's seismic activity. Yonaguni sits atop tectonic fault lines where sandstone fractures naturally into flat plains, sometimes creating stair-like formations. The monument's steps, they argue, could be the result of millennia of underwater erosion, a quirk of physics, not architecture, yet even skeptics admit there are anomalies. The structure's two massive monoliths, nicknamed the Turtle and the Stage, feature near perfectly circular holes and sharp-edged channels that mirror drainage systems in known ancient sites. Then there's the Road, a straight 10-foot-wide pathway leading directly to the monument's base, lined with stones that look suspiciously placed rather than randomly scattered. If humans did build this, the logistics become a nightmare. Yonaguni's monument would have required quarrying and moving hundreds of tons of stone in an era when Japan's Jomon culture was still hunter-gatherers living in pit dwellings. Even assuming the site was above water during construction, a possibility given sea levels rose 400 feet since the last ice age, how did they transport materials to this remote outcrop? The nearest source of similar sandstone is over a mile away across open ocean. No pottery or tools have been found nearby to confirm human activity, yet the structure's alignment with solstice sunrises hints at intentional design. Marine archaeologist Masaki Kimura, who spent decades studying the site, insists it's artificial. He identifies what he calls carved faces, resembling Moai statues, and even claims to have found a sunken stone tablet covered in symbols. Mainstream academia dismisses his findings as pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns where none exist. But here's where it gets eerie. Nearby coastal caves contain stalactite formations broken exactly where they would have intersected with the monument's height if it stood above water. Coincidence or evidence the structure once breached the surface? The most haunting clue might lie in local folklore. Yonaguni's elders speak of Tida, a mythic sunken city, and fishermen have long avoided the area, calling it the place where the sea swallows gods. Could these stories be fractured memories of a real catastrophe? Or is the monument simply a Rorschach test for our fascination with lost civilizations? Dive down there yourself, and you'll feel it, the unsettling sense that those sharp edges and right angles are asking a question we're not yet equipped to answer. Because whether carved by nature or by hands, Yonaguni's true power lies in its ability to blur the line between the possible and the impossible, leaving us to wonder how much of history is still hidden beneath the waves. High on the windswept Bolivian Altiplano, where the thin air makes even breathing a struggle, lies a ruin that defies everything we know about ancient stonework, Puma Punku. Unlike the massive pyramids or towering statues of other civilizations, this site's genius lies in its terrifying precision. Scattered across the plateau are H-shaped blocks of andesite, some weighing over 100 tons, each cut with edges so sharp they could slice paper. The surfaces are flawlessly flat, the corners perfect 90-degree angles, and the drill holes, yes, drill holes bore straight through the stone with a consistency that even modern diamond bits struggle to replicate. The material alone is a puzzle. Andesite is volcanic rock harder than granite, requiring tools tougher than itself to shape. Yet these stones bear no chisel marks or signs of gradual grinding. Instead, they look like they were sliced by something unimaginably powerful, as if a giant bandsaw had passed through them. Some blocks interlock with tongue and groove joints so precise they fit together without mortar, resisting earthquakes for centuries. Even more baffling, the quarry for this stone sits 50 miles away, across rugged terrain at an elevation of 12,000 feet higher than most commercial planes fly. Mainstream archaeology suggests the Tiwanaku culture built Puma Punku around 500 AD, using bronze tools and brute force, but that explanation crumbles under scrutiny. Bronze is too soft to carve andesite efficiently, and experiments show it would have taken lifetimes to shape just one block with primitive methods. the logistical nightmare deepens when you consider transport. Without wheels or draft animals, the Inca wouldn't have llamas for another 1,000 years. How did they move these megaliths? Some theorize log rollers, but the Altiplano's sparse tree cover makes that unlikely. Others propose reed ropes and sledges, yet the weight would have crushed any wooden frame long before reaching the site. Fringe researchers point to something stranger. Certain cuts resemble those made by modern oscillating tools, with grooves too fine and uniform for hand tools. One block even shows what looks like a counterbore, a recessed hole typical of machined metal fasteners. Could the Tiwanaku have possessed advanced technology lost to time? Local legends speak of sky gods who built Puma Punku in a single night, wielding melting stones. Meanwhile, engineers note the site's alignment with celestial events, suggesting an understanding of astronomy that feels out of place for its era. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in the ruined state. The blocks aren't just placed there shattered, as if hit by an unimaginable force. Some appear vitrified, their surfaces glassy from extreme heat. Was this the work of a cataclysm? Or evidence of a forgotten technique, one that fused and cut stone with methods we've yet to rediscover? Standing among those razor-edged ruins, you're left with a chilling thought. If this was their construction site, what could they have built intact? And why does it feel like we're staring at the debris of a science we don't yet understand? Dotting the windswept shores of Gotland, Sweden, lie ghostly fleets of stone, massive Viking-era ship formations built not from wood, but from carefully arranged boulders, some weighing as much as 2 cars stacked together. These aren't random piles, they're meticulously designed outlines with prow and stern stones marking the tips of vessels that could stretch longer than a blue whale. The largest, at Unsolved, spans 170 feet, a scale that would have required real ships to transport the stones, except there's no evidence of boats large enough to carry such loads. So how did Viking crews manipulate these megaliths without leaving so much as a scrape or a worn path in the earth? The stones themselves hold clues. Unlike the quarried blocks of other ancient sites, these are glacial erratics rocks plucked by ice ages and dropped haphazardly across the landscape. That meant no cutting or shaping, but also no choice in material. Vikings had to work with what the earth provided, hauling jagged boulders over miles of uneven terrain. Modern experiments suggest teams might have used wooden sledges greased with animal fat, combined with rollers made from felled trees. But here's the catch. Gotland's soil is soft, churned by centuries of agriculture, yet there's no trace of sled tracks or crushed vegetation beneath the ships. It's as if the stones were placed by giants who tread lightly. Then there's the eerie precision of the arrangements. Some ships align with solstice sunrises, others point to burial mounds or distant standing stones. The largest formations often cluster near coastal trading routes, visible from the sea like nautical signposts. Were they territorial markers, memorials to fallen warriors? Or something more arcane? Norse sagas hint at rituals where symbolic ships carried the dead to the afterlife, a notion supported by cremation remains found inside several stone circles. But the lack of tool marks suggests these weren't just construction projects. They were acts of reverence where the journey of moving each stone might have been as sacred as its placement. The most haunting detail comes from the sagas themselves. One account describes the walking stones, boulders said to move at night when blessed by moonlight. Modern geologists scoff, but folklorists note a pattern. Many ship sites sit atop subterranean streams where freeze-thaw cycles can subtly shift rocks over time. Could the Vikings have harnessed natural forces, waiting for winter ice to nudge boulders into position? Or did they possess some lost technique, like the ropes of enchantment, mentioned in runic texts, woven fibers treated with unknown substances to reduce friction? Standing among these silent stone fleets, you're struck by their duality. They're both brute force and delicate artistry, monuments to a culture that saw no divide between the practical and the mystical. The real mystery isn't just how they moved these stones, it's why they went to such lengths to make them look weightless, as if each ship might one day lift its anchors and slide silently back into the sea. Beneath the rolling hills of Zhejiang province in China, a labyrinth of hand-carved caves sprawls across an area equivalent to 5 football fields, the Longyu Caves. Discovered in 1992 when a local farmer drained a pond, these caverns reveal walls chiseled with such precision that tool marks form uniform, decorative patterns across every surface. But the real head-scratcher isn't the craftsmanship, it's the complete absence of debris. Excavating 30,000 square meters of bedrock would have produced over 900,000 cubic feet of stone rubble, enough to fill 15 Olympic swimming pools. Yet not a single chip, not one pile of spoil, has ever been found in the surrounding area. The logistics defy explanation. Mainstream archaeology suggests the caves were carved 2,000 years ago during the Western Han Dynasty, using iron chisels and sheer manpower. But even if teams worked around the clock, removing that volume of stone without leaving transport trails or dumping grounds would have required a level of coordination bordering on supernatural. Modern engineers note that hauling such debris would have demanded a fleet of carts making thousands of trips. Yet the region's soft soil shows no ruts or compressed pathways. So where did it all go? One theory points to the nearby river. Perhaps builders loaded rubble onto barges, dispersing it downstream, but hydrological surveys reveal no sediment spikes in the riverbed matching the cave's era. Another idea proposes the stone was repurposed for local construction, yet none of the nearby ancient structures contain the distinctive reddish sandstone from the caverns. The most tantalizing clue lies in the cave's own architecture. Intricate drainage channels suggest water played a role in construction. Could underground streams have carried pulverized rock away? Skeptics counter that the caves sit above the water table, making hydraulic removal impossible. Then there's the folkloric angle. Local legends speak of a silent mountain that swallowed its own bones, hinting at a lost technique where stone was somehow dissolved or vaporized. Chemical analysis of the walls reveals traces of organic acids. Could workers have used fermented plant concoctions to soften rock, making it easier to cart away in sludge form? Experiments with vinegar and rice wine show mild erosive effects, but nothing justifying the sheer scale of missing material. The most haunting detail comes from the caves themselves. Their ceilings bear strange, wave-like grooves, not random pick marks but deliberate, rhythmic undulations resembling the ripples of a pond. Acoustically, these curves create eerie echoes, amplifying whispers into ghostly murmurs. Were the caves designed as resonating chambers? Did sound play a role in breaking or transporting stone? Standing in those dim passageways, you're left with an unnerving thought. If the builders could make an entire mountain's worth of rubble vanish without a trace, what other secrets might these walls still hold? And why does it feel like they wanted us to notice the absence as much as the artistry left behind? Deep beneath the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, Mexico, archaeologists made a discovery that still sends shivers down the spines of engineers. A 30-foot-wide sheet of mica, sandwiched between 2 layers of stone like some ancient circuit board. This wasn't just any mica. Chemical analysis revealed it came from a specific region in Brazil, over 2,000 miles away. That's the equivalent of someone hauling a window pane the size of a school bus from Canada to Mexico without cracking it using only Stone Age technology. Mica is a mineral with bizarre properties. It can be split into paper-thin sheets, yet withstands temperatures up to 1,000 degrees. More intriguingly, it's an electrical insulator, blocking current from passing through, a fact modern science only confirmed in the 1800s. So why would Teotihuacan's builders go to such lengths to embed it in their pyramid? One theory points to the city's other oddities: liquid mercury pools found beneath nearby temples, and walls coated in powdered mica that would have glittered like gold in sunlight. Together, they suggest the Teotihuacanos might have been experimenting with energy manipulation long before the concept of electricity existed. Then there's the transport puzzle. Mica is fragile, bend it wrong, and it shatters like glass. The Brazilian deposits lie across jungles, mountains, and rivers, with no evidence of roads or trade networks linking the two regions. Some researchers propose it was carried in small pieces and fused together using plant-based adhesives, though no traces of glue have been found. Others note that mica occurs naturally in thin layers. Maybe workers painstakingly peeled sheets from bedrock like pages of a book, then protected them between woven mats during transport. But the real shock came when scientists examined the mica's placement. It wasn't decorative, it was hidden, buried under 60 feet of stone where no one could see it. This wasn't for show, it was functional. Ancient texts from other Mesoamerican cultures describe sacred shields that could catch the sun's breath, possibly referring to mica's ability to reflect and diffuse heat. Modern experiments show the pyramid's mica layer aligns with solstice sunrises, creating thermal pockets that could have powered ventilation systems or even primitive refrigeration. The most haunting detail: when Spanish conquistadors looted the site in the 1500s, they found the mica sheet intact, but within decades, exposure to humidity caused it to delaminate into worthless flakes. Whatever secret the Teotihuacanos knew about preserving this material died with them. Today, all that remains are a few fragile fragments and a lingering question. If they could move and install this fragile marvel without leaving a single blueprint, what else did they understand about the invisible forces of nature that we're still struggling to relearn? Carved into the bedrock of Aswan's quarries, the unfinished obelisk lies like a frozen titan, a single piece of red granite that would have dwarfed every other monument in ancient Egypt. Stretching 137 feet long and weighing an unimaginable 1,200 tons, it's 3 times heavier than any obelisk ever erected. Yet here it remains, half-carved, half-dreamed, its lower side still fused to the earth where workers abandoned it 3,500 years ago. The cracks that doomed it are visible from space, jagged fissures spiderwebbing across the stone, betraying the moment when ambition outpaced engineering. But the real marvel isn't its failure, it's what the attempt reveals. The obelisk's sides are polished to a mirror sheen, its corners sharp enough to draw blood, proving the Egyptians had mastered large-scale precision carving. Tool marks show how teams worked in synchronized shifts, pounding the granite with dolerite stones, a rock harder than granite itself, to slowly define the obelisk shape. What's chilling is the efficiency. Scientists estimate they removed over 200 tons of debris per week, yet left no scratches or missteps. Every hammer blow was calculated, every angle planned. Then comes the transport puzzle. Had it been completed, moving the obelisk would have required a barge longer than a football field, capable of carrying the weight of 260 elephants. Even with the Nile's currents, shifting such mass without capsizing seems impossible. Some engineers propose they might have built a submerged cradle, floating the obelisk between twin barges to distribute weight, a technique no modern crew has dared attempt. Others point to the quarry's sloping ramp, where grooves suggest a system of ropes and counterweights could have lowered the monolith onto a waiting sled. But the margin for error, less than 1 degree, a single misaligned pull would have sent it careening into the riverbank. The cracks offer their own clues. Geologists found they weren't caused by clumsy workmanship, but by hidden flaws in the bedrock invisible until the obelisk was nearly freed. This suggests the Egyptians had no way to scan for fractures, relying instead on intuition and experience. And yet they almost succeeded. The obelisk's base is perfectly intact, its geometry flawless. If not for that one weak vein of stone, it might have stood as a testament to human triumph. Standing in that quarry today, you're left with a haunting duality. The unfinished obelisk is both a tombstone for limits and a blueprint for genius. Its very existence proves the Egyptians were pushing boundaries we still don't fully understand, testing the line between the achievable and the unimaginable. And perhaps that's why they left it there, not as a failure but as a lesson. A reminder that even the greatest builders walk the knife's edge between masterpiece and ruin, and that some stones are meant to stay grounded, whispering secrets only the earth can hear. Crossing the sun-baked limestone plains of Malta like the scars of some ancient railroad, the cart ruts of Misragar il-Khair carve parallel grooves so precise they look machine-made. Some run straight for hundreds of yards before suddenly veering off cliffs or vanishing beneath the Mediterranean's waves. Others intersect in complex junctions resembling modern highway interchanges. But here's what defies logic. These channels were cut into solid rock over 3,000 years ago by a civilization that left no written records, no wheels, and no clear explanation for why they'd need such an elaborate transport network. The ruts themselves are engineering marvels. Each groove measures exactly 4.5 inches deep with near vertical sides, a consistency impossible to achieve with random sled wear. Experiments show that dragging a laden sledge across limestone would create shallow, uneven scrapes, not these ruler-straight tracks. Even stranger, some ruts run uphill at gradients that would have been exhausting for human or animal labor, while others spiral in tight circles for no apparent reason. Local legends say the grooves were made by celestial chariots, but archaeologists propose a more grounded theory. They guided sledges hauling megaliths for temples like Haga Kim, where stone blocks weigh up to 20 tons. Yet the temple theory falls apart when you follow certain RTS to their endpoints. At Dingley Cliffs, tracks march straight off a 200-foot drop into the sea. Off Malta's coast, divers have found identical grooves submerged under 90 feet of water, proof they were carved when sea levels were lower during the last ice age. This raises a chilling possibility. The ruts might be far older than the temples, remnants of a lost civilization that worked this land when Malta was still connected to Sicily by a land bridge. The real enigma lies in the groove's precision. Microscopic analysis reveals tool marks suggesting the builders used a technique called pecking, pounding the limestone with stone hammers to create guide channels, then smoothing them with abrasives. But the energy required would have been astronomical. Researchers estimate carving just 1 mile of rut required removing over 300 tons of rock. Where did all that debris go? The island shows no mounds of spoil, no quarries filled with rubble, unless, as some fringe researchers suggest, the crushed limestone was mixed with water and used to make a primitive concrete, a technique later rediscovered by the Romans. Perhaps the most haunting clue comes from the rut's layout. Satellite imaging reveals they form a network linking prehistoric wells, suggesting they might have been part of a water distribution system. But why would a culture invest millennia of labor into stone grooves when clay pipes would have been easier? Unless they knew something we don't, that water flowing through limestone channels stays cooler, resisting evaporation in Malta's scorching summers. Standing at a rut intersection, you can almost hear the echo of wooden sledges long gone, and sense the presence of a people who turned their entire island into a machine we're only beginning to comprehend. On the windswept Bolshoi Zayatsky Island in Russia's White Sea, where the Arctic cold bites through even the thickest fur, lies a puzzle etched into the frozen earth. 14 spiral stone labyrinths, their coiled paths so precise they look like fingerprints pressed into the rock. Some measure 50 feet across, built from local stones weighing up to a ton each, arranged in concentric circles so geometrically perfect they rival modern mathematical designs. But here's what chills the bones. These labyrinths date back over 2,500 years, built by a culture so mysterious we don't even know what they called themselves. The stones themselves aren't the riddle, it's the journey they took to get there. Bolshoi Zayatsky is a barren outcrop with no natural stone deposits suitable for construction. Every rock had to be ferried from the mainland across treacherous, ice-choked waters in boats barely seaworthy enough for fishing. Modern recreations show that moving just 1 ton of stone would have required multiple trips in hide-covered canoes, battling currents strong enough to snap oars. Why risk such insanity for a pattern in the dirt? Local Sami legends whisper that the labyrinths were portals, not for the living but for souls. Ancient shamans supposedly walked these spirals in trance states, guiding the dead through the underworld seas to the afterlife. The layouts support this. Many labyrinths have a single, unbranching path leading inexorably to the center, mirroring descriptions of the spirit journey in Sami oral histories. Even the stone choices seem deliberate. Some rocks bear cup marks that fill with water under certain moon phases, creating shimmering guides in the Arctic dark. But practical theories exist too. Soviet archaeologist Nikolai Gurina discovered that standing at a labyrinth center during summer solstice aligns the stones with the sun's path across the sky. This has led some researchers to argue they were navigational aids, stone compasses helping ancient sailors plot courses in a region where magnetic poles play havoc with ordinary direction finding. The most compelling evidence, nearly identical labyrinths appear along Scandinavia's coast, suggesting a shared maritime culture spanning frozen waters. The real head-scratcher is the construction technique. Unlike stacked megaliths, these labyrinths are flush with the ground, their stones partially buried to resist the island's hurricane-force winds. Excavations reveal that builders dug shallow trenches, lined them with crushed shells for drainage, then wedged stones into a near-indestructible interlock. It's Arctic engineering at its finest, structures that have survived millennia of blizzards without a single stone dislodging. Yet the most haunting detail is the silence. No tools, no settlements, not even a shard of pottery has been found nearby. It's as if the builders came only to create these spirals, then vanished into the mist. Standing at the center of one, feeling the wind howl through the stones, you're left with a choice. Were these the work of star-guided sailors, spirit-calling shamans, or something else entirely? The labyrinths don't give answers, they simply wait, their coiled paths whispering that some journeys are meant to be walked, not explained. Buried among the Dead Sea Scrolls, hidden inside a cave's damp darkness for 2,000 years, lies an artifact that flips archaeology on its head, the Copper Scroll. Unlike its fragile parchment companions, this one's etched onto metal, its Hebrew letters spelling out not sacred texts, but what reads like a treasure hunter's fever dream. 64 locations where staggering hoards of silver and copper are supposedly buried. We're talking about quantities that make pirate loot look like pocket change, over 60 tons of precious metals scattered across the Judean desert. But here's what really twists the mystery. The scroll doesn't just list hiding spots. It reads like a logistics manual, detailing exact weights, precise landmarks, and even instructions like, dig 4 cubits north of the olive tree. This wasn't just hidden wealth, it was a system. Now let's talk scale. 60 tons of metal isn't something you toss in a wagon and haul across the desert. That's the weight of 10 adult elephants moved through some of the harshest terrain on Earth. Mainstream scholars argue it was likely temple treasure, smuggled out before the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, but the how is where things get surreal. Some entries reference tunnels. One leads to a cistern under the eastern stairs, another to a cavity beneath the threshold. Were these literal passages? Or coded references to something stranger, because the Talmud, Judaism's ancient commentary, drops cryptic hints about stones that move themselves and sages who could make heavy loads light. One passage describes the Ark of the Covenant levitating above its bearers during transport. Could these be garbled memories of lost techniques? Experiments with harmonic vibration show certain frequencies can reduce friction between stone and surface, making massive objects easier to slide. And let's not forget the nearby ruins of Qumran where the scroll was found. The site's plumbing system is so advanced, engineers compare it to Roman aqueducts, proof this culture mastered hydraulic force. Maybe they applied similar ingenuity to moving metal, but the wildest twist: nobody's ever found the treasure, not a single ingot. Expeditions have followed the scroll's clues for decades, only to hit dead ends. Some locations have vanished under modern construction, others lead to empty pits. This has fueled theories that the scrolls are decoy or that the metals were never meant to be retrieved, perhaps ritual offerings left for divine keeping. Yet the precision gnaws at you. Why etch such meticulous directions into something as durable as copper, if not to last millennia? The most haunting clue lies in the scroll's final entry. In the ruin that is in the Valley of Achor, dig beneath the steps. That valley's name means trouble in Hebrew, a place of biblical curses. Maybe the real treasure wasn't the metal at all, but the act of hiding it so completely. Its very existence dances between myth and legend. Standing in those sun-blasted hills, tracing your fingers over the scroll's oxidized words, you're left wondering, were these instructions for thieves? Or a message to the future, whispering that some burdens are meant to stay buried? Rising above the olive groves of Greece's Peloponnese, the walls of Mycenae loom like the work of giants, massive limestone boulders, some weighing as much as 2 armored trucks, fitted together so tightly you couldn't slip a blade between them. These so-called Cyclopean walls earned their name from ancient Greeks who refused to believe mere mortals could stack stones this colossal. But the real shock isn't their size, it's their silence. No pulleys, no cranes, not even traces of ramps or scaffolding. Just these monstrous blocks perched atop hillsides for over 3,000 years, defying earthquakes, wars, and the relentless march of time. The logistics make even modern engineers pause. Each boulder had to be hauled from quarries miles away, then lifted into precise positions along steep inclines. Traditional archaeology points to a technique called levering, using wooden beams to inch stones upward incrementally. But experiments reveal a glaring flaw. Moving a single 20-ton block this way would require hundreds of workers pulling ropes in perfect unison, yet Mycenae's narrow pathways couldn't have accommodated such crowds. Even more baffling, the absence of tool marks. These stones aren't just stacked, they're subtly shaped, their edges beveled to create friction locks that eliminate the need for mortar. It's as if the builders knew secrets of stone that we've since forgotten. Legends whisper of lost knowledge. Mycenaean tablets speak of daemons, spirits who aided construction, while later Greeks spun tales of one-eyed cyclopes hefting boulders into place. But look closer and you'll find clues in the walls themselves. Certain stones bear peculiar dimples as if scooped out by massive fingers. Researchers now think these are pivot points where teams used counterweighted levers to walk stones upright. Others show traces of a reddish substance, possibly a plant-based lubricant that reduced friction during placement. The most tantalizing hint: Mycenae's walls mirror seismic patterns. Their irregular blocks scatter earthquake forces like a crumple zone, a technique modern engineers call discontinuous construction. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't the how, but the why. Mycenae wasn't just a fortress, it was a statement. These walls weren't merely defensive, they were psychological warfare, designed to awe visitors into submission before they even reached the gates. Walking their shadow today, you can almost hear the whispers of those ancient builders, their methods hidden in plain sight. They didn't just move stone. They tamed it, turning brute strength into something that feels almost like magic. And that's the unsettling truth. We might never know if their genius was technological, spiritual, or some forgotten fusion of both. The stones remained silent, immovable, and utterly indifferent to our confusion. Deep in the heart of the Amazon, where the green canopy swallows sunlight whole, lies a secret written in the soil itself. Great swaths of jet-black earth so fertile, crops sprout twice as fast as in surrounding jungle ground. Scientists call it terra preta, or dark earth, but its origins are anything but ordinary. This isn't natural dirt. It's engineered, crafted by human hands over centuries, packed with charcoal, pottery shards, and nutrients foreign to the rainforest's typically thin topsoil. And here's what makes the hairs on your neck stand up. These patches don't occur randomly. They form sprawling, interconnected networks lines stretching for thousands of miles, connecting ancient settlements like some primordial highway system. The real shock comes when you overlay these dark earth corridors with modern satellite imagery. They align almost perfectly with the locations of long-lost Amazonian cities metropolises that once housed hundreds of thousands, now buried under centuries of vegetation. Some paths run straight as arrows for dozens of miles, cutting through terrain that would have been impassable without clearing. Others curve deliberately around natural obstacles, suggesting advanced surveying techniques. But the burning question remains, why go to such lengths to enrich the soil along these routes, unless it wasn't just about agriculture, unless these were roads? Mainstream archaeology hesitates at the idea. The Amazon was supposedly a pristine wilderness before Europeans arrived, its people small nomadic tribes. But the scale of Terra Preta tells a different story. Chemical analysis reveals these soils are laced with residues of cacao, Brazil nuts, and other trade goods materials that couldn't have grown locally. This hints at a vast exchange network, with dark earth highways serving as both transport routes and resting points where porters replenished supplies. Now consider the logistics. Moving goods through dense rainforest without wheels or pack animals would have been a nightmare. Rivers were the obvious highways, yet many dark earth paths veer away from waterways, climbing hills and plateaus instead. Some researchers propose a system of reed rafts dragged overland during wet seasons, lubricated by the very charcoal that gives Terra Preta its color. Others point to indigenous oral histories describing walking canoes, sled-like contraptions that slid over specially prepared paths, the most tantalizing clue. Certain dark earth strips contain microscopic spherical magnets, a byproduct of extreme heat. This suggests intentional burning at temperatures higher than ordinary fires could achieve, possibly to harden road surfaces or create magnetic guide markers. Modern indigenous tribes still use similar techniques to fireproof trails against regrowth. Could these be the last fragments of a lost transportation technology, one that turned the world's most inhospitable jungle into a bustling trade hub? Standing in those ebon corridors today, feeling the unnatural richness crumble between your fingers, you're left with a chilling thought. The Amazon wasn't a wilderness. It was a garden, and those dark earth lines, they're not just soil. They're the fingerprints of a civilization that mastered its environment so completely, we're only now beginning to recognize the shape of their hands. Carved into the cliffs of Azerbaijan's Gobekli Plateau, the stone tents stand as silent witnesses to a paradox etched in rock. These 12,000-year-old shelters, their ceilings blackened by ancient fires, hold a secret that shouldn't exist: petroglyphs of wagons with spoked wheels, some so detailed they show axle pins and cargo platforms. The drawings are unmistakable, wheels in motion, rolling across stone canvases long before history says they should. Yet if wheels were known this early, why do we find no traces of them where we'd expect beneath the megaliths of Gobekli Tepe or the stones of Karnak? Why is this lone pocket of Azerbaijan the only place where wheeled transport seems frozen in prehistoric art but absent from the archaeological record? The petroglyphs themselves are masterclasses in precision. Unlike crude stick figures, these wagon scenes depict advanced designs, some wheels with as many as 8 spokes, others showing harnessed oxen with yoke lines angled for efficient pulling. One remarkable panel even illustrates a convoy with multiple wagons following a leader in what appears to be a caravan formation. This isn't doodling, it's documentation. And it clashes violently with conventional timelines, which place the invention of wheeled vehicles no earlier than 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. But the real head-scratcher lies in the landscape itself. Gobekli's terrain is a brutal mix of jagged limestone and sudden ravines, some of the worst possible ground for wheeled travel. Experiments with replica wagons show they'd have shattered on these rocks within miles. This has led some researchers to propose the wagons weren't local, but depicted foreign technology seen by travelers. Others point to a climate that was radically different 12 millennia ago, lush grasslands where wheels might have glided smoothly across packed earth. Core samples confirm the area was once savanna-like, but that only deepens the mystery. If wheels worked here, why didn't the idea spread? The most haunting clue might be in the shelter's other carvings. Alongside the wagons are boats, dozens of them, some with sails billowing as if caught in mid-journey. This juxtaposition suggests a culture that mastered both land and water transport, yet left no physical evidence beyond these cliff-face blueprints. Modern archaeologists have combed the region for wheel fragments or axle remnants, finding nothing. It's as if the knowledge existed, then vanished, preserved only in stone like a warning. Perhaps the answer lies in what the wagons carried. Some petroglyphs show what might be ritual processions with figures raising arms toward crescent symbols. Could these have been ceremonial vehicles, their use restricted to spiritual journeys rather than practical transport? Or is the truth even stranger, that wheels were invented, abandoned, then reinvented millennia later, like a technological dream humanity forgot and had to re-dream? Standing in those shadowed shelters, tracing your fingers over wagon wheels frozen in time, you're left with a chilling thought. What if progress isn't a straight line but a circle, and some discoveries are destined to be lost until the world is ready to find them again? Beneath the sun-baked plains of Cappadocia, Turkey, lies a labyrinth so vast it could swallow entire neighborhoods whole, the ancient underground city of Derinkuyu. 18 stories deep, with enough space to shelter 20,000 people for months at a time, this subterranean metropolis wasn't just a refuge, it was a self-sustaining machine. But the real marvel isn't the honeycombed tunnels or the rolling stone doors. It's the invisible choreography of survival that kept this hidden world alive, the silent dance of moving air, water, and supplies through pitch-black passages without a single whisper reaching the surface. Start with the air. Ventilation shafts, some stretching over 200 feet upward, weren't just holes, they were precision-engineered lungs, carved at slight angles to disguise their openings above ground. These ducts exploited differences in air pressure to create a passive circulation system. Warm, stale air rose and escaped through higher vents, while cooler, fresh air was drawn in through concealed lower passages. Experiments with smoke bombs show the system was so efficient, it could completely replace the air in the entire city within 4 hours. And here's the kicker, some shafts double as wells, their surfaces grooved to channel condensation into collection pools below. One passage, one function. Not here, every inch was designed for ruthless efficiency. Then there's water. Derinkuyu sits in a region where surface rivers are scarce, yet the city boasted over 50 subterranean wells tapping into an aquifer nearly 400 feet down. The real genius lies in the distribution. Unlike Roman aqueducts that required gravity-fed slopes, Derinkuyu's water network used a series of counterweighted buckets on ropes, allowing water to be hauled up vertical shafts and funneled through ceramic pipes to communal cisterns. But the clincher, these pipes weren't just laid, they were embedded within walls, protected from collapse and hidden from enemies. Even today, engineers can't pinpoint exactly how they maintained consistent pressure across 18 levels without a single leak leaving telltale stains on the rock. Supplies present an even knottier puzzle. Grain stores on the lowest floors could hold enough wheat to feed thousands for half a year, but getting it down there would have been a nightmare. The central shaft, wide enough for 3 people to descend abreast, shows grooves that suggest a primitive elevator system, likely a wooden platform winched up and down with hemp ropes. Yet not a single splinter of wood or fiber has been found in excavations. The answer might lie in the walls themselves. certain chambers have unusual niches at shoulder height, their edges polished smooth. These could have held horizontal log rollers, allowing sacks to be slid down ramps with minimal friction. Its logistics reduced to pure physics: no wheels, no pulleys, just clever angles and an intimate understanding of stone. Now the elephant in the cavern. Where did all the excavated debris go? Digging out space for 20,000 people would have produced nearly 300,000 cubic yards of rock, enough to build 10 Great Pyramids. Yet the surrounding landscape shows no massive spoil heaps. Recent LiDAR scans reveal the unsettling truth. Much of it was likely pulverized and mixed with clay to create a lightweight concrete, used to reinforce ceilings and seal off unused tunnels. Some might have been carried to nearby surface settlements under cover of darkness, explaining why Cappadocia's famous ferry chimney rock formations bear tool marks matching Durinkuyu's. The most haunting detail isn't the how, but the why. This wasn't just a hideout, it was a time capsule of siege psychology. Hidden vertical shafts connect to surface stables, allowing livestock to be lowered inside without exposing the entrance. Communal kitchens positioned near ventilation shafts dispersed smoke through a maze of baffles, making it undetectable from above. Even the city's layout was psychological warfare. Descending corridors narrow abruptly, forcing invaders to enter single file while defenders could rain arrows or boiling oil from hidden murder holes. Standing in those shadowed passages today, you realize Durinkuyu's builders didn't just move rock. They moved necessity itself, bending the very concept of survival to their will. The city's true secret wasn't in its stones, but in its silence, a masterpiece of invisible efficiency, whispering that sometimes the greatest triumphs leave no trace at all. Rising from the turquoise waters of Micronesia like the bones of a sunken titan, Nan Madol is a jigsaw puzzle carved from black basalt. 92 artificial islets stretch across the lagoon, each built atop coral reefs with colossal hexagonal columns stacked like firewood, some weighing as much as 50 tons. The math alone is staggering. Over 250 million tons of volcanic rock moved to this remote patch of ocean with no quarries in sight, the nearest source. An island 20 miles away, across shark-infested channels where currents could flip a modern fishing boat. Mainstream archaeology offers a fragile explanation: bamboo rafts. The theory suggests teams lashed logs together, floated basalt columns atop them, then prayed the sea stayed calm. Experiments show this might work for small loads, but Nan Madol's megaliths would have swamped any raft large enough to carry them. Even if they somehow survived the voyage, unloading these multi-ton stones without cranes or docks would have been a death-defying feat. Yet somehow the Sordalor dynasty, a civilization with no metal tools, no wheels, and no written records, built this aquatic metropolis 800 years ago. Local legends refuse to play along with the raft theory. Oral histories speak of flying canoes that soared between islands, guided by twin brothers wielding magic. One chant describes basalt columns rising like birds from quarries before nesting in the lagoon. Could these be garbled memories of advanced technology? Or just poetic metaphors? Intriguingly, certain basalt columns bear grooves that resemble lifting points, as if they were once suspended by ropes or cables. More unsettling are the islets themselves. Their foundations incorporate precisely cut prismatic basalt, a formation that occurs naturally but is near impossible to quarry without fracturing. The water itself hides clues. Recent sonar scans reveal submerged basalt roads connecting some islets, suggesting the city was once larger, or that builders intentionally flooded parts of it. Even more perplexing are the anchor stones found scattered around the lagoon, some weighing 5 tons. These aren't ordinary anchors, they're drilled with holes in patterns that mirror the positions of certain islets like a 3-dimensional map. Were they navigation aids, ritual objects, or part of some forgotten transport system? Then there's the silence. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Cambodia's Angkor Wat, Nan Madol has no carvings, no murals celebrating its construction. The only hints lie in the bones. Excavations uncovered skeletons with unusual fractures consistent with repetitive heavy lifting, yet also with strangely elongated skulls, a trait not seen elsewhere in Micronesia. Were these the builders or something else entirely, standing on those blackened islets today, watching waves crash through empty stone channels? You're left with a chilling thought. Nan Madol wasn't just a city, it was a machine, one we've forgotten how to start. And those flying canoe legends, they might not be myths at all, but instructions we no longer know how to read. Buried in the mud of England's Preseli Hills lies a geological fingerprint, the exact match for Stonehenge's iconic bluestones. These spotted dolerite pillars, each weighing up to 4 tons, were dragged, floated, and somehow maneuvered 140 miles to Salisbury Plain over 5,000 years ago. But here's the twist: glaciers didn't do it. Geological surveys confirm no ice sheets carried these stones south during the last ice age. The only force capable of moving them was human, or something even older. The journey begins in Wales' Carn Godog Quarry, where archaeologists found stone tools and wedge marks proving Neolithic crews extracted these pillars deliberately. But the route to Stonehenge is a nightmare of swamps, cliffs, and raging rivers. Mainstream theories suggest sledges greased with animal fat, log rollers, and a mix of river rafts and overland hauling. Sounds plausible until you try it. Modern experiments show that even on flat ground, moving a single bluestone requires 200 people pulling ropes with constant adjustments to prevent the sledge from bogging down. Now imagine scaling the Welsh Highlands, fording the Severn River's tidal surges, and crossing the chalk downs of Wessex without a single snapped rope or crushed worker. The odds aren't just low, they're ludicrous, yet the stones arrived, not as rubble but as pristine monoliths, their surfaces polished smoother than glass. This precision fuels wilder theories. Local folklore speaks of Merlin magically transporting the stones from Ireland, while some archaeologists point to the bluestone's eerie acoustic properties. When struck, they ring like metallic bells. Could sound have played a role? Experiments show certain frequencies reduce friction between stone and wood, making sledges glide more easily. It's a stretch, but so is the idea of Neolithic engineers portaging 4-ton rocks through miles of marshland without leaving a single broken sledge in the archaeological record. The most compelling clue might lie in the stones themselves. Bluestones were prized for their healing properties long before Stonehenge existed. Springs near the Preseli quarries were sacred to Bronze Age pilgrims, hinting these stones weren't just construction materials, they were relics. Maybe their journey was part ritual, part engineering marvel, with teams rotating along predetermined routes like relay runners passing a sacred torch. Or perhaps, as the ancients believed, the stones moved because they wanted to. Standing in that silent circle today, you're left with two truths: the bluestones made it, and we'll never fully know how. Their secrets are buried too deep, not in the earth, but in the space between myth and muscle. Buried beneath the dry earth of China's Shaanxi province, the terracotta army stands frozen in silent formation. Row upon row of life-sized warriors, each one unique, each weighing nearly 400 pounds. But the real enigma isn't their creation, it's how they got there. 8,000 clay soldiers, along with hundreds of chariots and horses, were somehow transported into Xi'an's sprawling underground complex over 2,000 years ago without a single cracked arm or chipped face. The pits show no drag marks, no broken fragments littering the tunnels, just an army of perfect sentinels, arranged as if they'd marched into place on their own. The logistics defy belief. These aren't lightweight figurines. Each warrior was sculpted from dense local clay, fired in kilns, then moved over uneven terrain to pits nearly a mile from the nearest workshop. Modern experiments show that even with padded sledges, transporting just one statue without damage would require a team of 20 people moving at a snail's pace. Yet the pits contain no evidence of ramps or cranes, no post holes for pulley systems. So how did they do it? One clue lies in the tunnels themselves. The walls bear faint, wavy patterns, not tool marks, but something far stranger. Archaeologists believe these could be the ghosts of ice paths. Ancient texts mention frost roads, where workers poured water onto dirt in freezing temperatures, creating slick surfaces for sliding heavy loads. During Shonxi's cold winters, teams might have greased these ice channels with animal fat, allowing statues to glide effortlessly into position. The ice would melt come spring, leaving no trace behind. But then there's the puzzle of the debris, or rather, the lack of it. Excavations reveal no pottery shards, no discarded tools, not even footprints in the tunnel floors. This suggests another possibility. The warriors were transported in pieces. CT scans confirm most statues were hollow, with detachable arms and heads. Artisans could have carried these components separately, assembling them in the pits like a macabre IKEA project. Yet even this theory stumbles when confronted with the chariot's solid, one-ton slabs of fired clay with no seams or joints. Perhaps the most haunting evidence comes from the pit's layout. The tunnels align with underground springs, their floors slightly concave, as if designed to channel water. Some researchers propose a system of floating platform statues placed on reed rafts and floated through temporary canals, guided by ropes anchored to the walls. After placement, the water would drain away, leaving the army high and dry. It's a tantalizing idea, but one that raises new questions. Where did the water go? No drainage channels or silt deposits have been found. Local legends offer a different take. Folktales speak of Emperor Qin Shi Huang's necropolis being built by ghost laborers, spirits who worked invisibly under cover of darkness. Modern scholars dismiss this as superstition, but there's an eerie consistency to the site's silence. No contemporary records describe the transport process. No murals depict the work. It's as if the builders wanted the army's arrival to seem effortless, a supernatural mustering of forces. Standing in those shadowed tunnels today, staring into the unblinking eyes of a clay general, you're left with a chilling thought. Maybe the true genius of the terracotta army isn't in the soldiers themselves, but in the void they left behind. No scratches, no broken shards, no clues. Just 8,000 perfect warriors, daring us to ask, if their journey left no trace, did it even happen at all? Or are we staring at the fingerprints of a method so advanced it vanished without a whisper? Towering over the savannas of southern Africa, the ruins of Great Zimbabwe rise like a mirage, massive dry stone walls woven from 20,000 tons of granite, their curves echoing the silhouette of nearby hills. The city flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries, its towers and passageways built with such precision that not a drop of mortar was needed. But the real puzzle isn't just the stacking of these stones, it's what's missing. No wooden scaffolding, no timber ramps, not even a single post hole to suggest temporary structures. And here's the kicker, the nearest forests lie miles away, in a landscape where termites devoured dead wood within months. So how did builders hoist multi-ton blocks 30 feet into the air without leaving a trace of their methods? Local traditions might hold a clue or a cipher. The Shona people, descendants of great Zimbabwe's builders, speak of the Zivigan, mythical birdmen who aided construction. Some cave paintings in the region depict humanoid figures with wings hovering near stone structures. Could these be symbolic representations of scaffolding techniques? Or something more tantalizing, archaeologists note that the walls tapered, design wider at the base, narrowing as they rise, suggests an ingenious solution. The stones themselves acted as their own support system. Workers likely built inward as they ascended, using each completed layer as a platform for the next. It's a technique later seen in European Gothic cathedrals, but here, perfected centuries earlier without blueprints or written records. But the birdman legends grow stranger. 19th century explorers recorded elders describing ropes that sang, used to lift stones, recent experiments show that tightly braided grass cables, when twisted and dampened, can produce harmonic vibrations that temporarily stiffen the fibers, potentially allowing them to bear shocking loads. Even today, Shona basket weavers use a similar principle, creating coils that can support a grown adult's weight. Could ancient builders have scaled this knowledge up, crafting ropes strong enough to hoist granite blocks, then dismantling them to leave no trace? The ruins themselves offer silent testimony. Certain walls feature peculiar notches at regular intervals, too small for ladders, but perfectly spaced for a system of counterweighted levers. Archaeoacoustic studies reveal these recesses amplify specific frequencies when wind passes through them, hinting at a possible auditory guidance system. Imagine teams coordinating lifts with rhythmic chants, their timing synced to the stone's resonant hum. Then there's the enigma of the soapstone birds, 8 carved avian figures found atop monoliths, their wings outstretched as if frozen mid-flight. These weren't decorative, their bases slot into grooves, suggesting a mechanical function. Some researchers propose they served as wind direction indicators, helping workers time lifts to gusts that could lighten load. Others point to their alignment with seasonal winds that still blow with clockwork regularity, a natural crane operating on celestial schedules. The most haunting question isn't how they built it, but why they chose this method. Great Zimbabwe's rulers controlled gold and ivory trade routes spanning continents. They could have imported timber or enslaved laborers to drag ramps. Instead, they engineered a system that vanished the moment the last stone was laid, an ephemeral technology as elegant as it was invisible. Walking those sun-baked walls today, you're left with a humbling thought. Perhaps true mastery isn't just about what you create, but what you leave behind. Or rather, what you don't. Bolivia's high-altitude deserts hold a secret that defies the eye, a sprawling network of over 16,000 perfectly straight lines carved into the earth, stretching across an area larger than some countries. These are the Sacsayhuamán lines, a labyrinth of paths so precise they look like they were drawn with a celestial ruler. Some run uninterrupted for 12 miles, cutting through rugged terrain without deviating more than a few feet over their entire length. The sheer scale is staggering. If laid end to end, they'd wrap around the planet 3 times. Yet they were etched by the indigenous people of the region centuries before the compass reached the Americas, long before modern surveying tools existed. The mystery isn't just the line's straightness, it's their purpose. Unlike Peru's Nazca lines, which form visible images from above, the Sacsayhuamán lines are stark and functional, resembling a vast grid of laser beams frozen into the earth. Some researchers argue they were pilgrimage routes guiding worshippers to sacred volcanic peaks. Others believe they mapped underground water sources, their intersections marking hidden aquifers in this parched landscape. But the most tantalizing theory, they were cosmic highways. Certain lines align with solstice sunrises, while others point to the rising of Venus, a celestial body deeply tied to Andean mythology. Imagine thousands of torchbearers marching these paths during rituals, their flames tracing constellations under the stars, a living bridge between earth and sky. Maintaining such precision over miles of uneven ground would have required ingenious techniques. The builders likely used a method called striding, where surveyors walked heel to toe in straight lines, using distant landmarks like mountaintops or rock formations as visual guides. Experiments show this low-tech approach can achieve unnerving accuracy, but only if the markers remain visible. Here's where it gets eerie. Many lines vanish into terrain where natural landmarks are obscured by hills or mist. This suggests the creators might have used reflective materials, polished metal or water-filled basins, to bounce sunlight between stations, effectively creating a prehistoric theodolite. The logistics of construction are equally baffling. The lines weren't just scraped into loose soil, they're trenches up to 3 feet deep, cleared of vegetation and packed with white quartz to make them glow under moonlight. Moving that much material without beasts of burden would have required coordinated labor on a military scale. Yet there's no evidence of forced labor or centralized authority in the region at the time. Instead, archaeologists find traces of communal feasting sites along the lines, hinting at a culture where participation was voluntary, even celebratory. The most haunting detail lies in the line's endurance. Unlike roads that erode with use, these paths were designed to resist time. The packed quartz reflects heat, preventing plant regrowth, while the trenches channel wind to sweep away debris. Walking them today, you'll notice something uncanny. The lines don't feel ancient. They feel inevitable, as if the earth itself agreed to hold this pattern forever. Perhaps that's the real secret hidden in their straightness, not just a feat of engineering, but a pact between humans and land, a promise etched so deeply it outlasted empires. The Sacsayhuamán lines don't ask to be solved, they ask to be walked, one foot in front of the other, following a path older than memory. Dredged from the Mediterranean depths in 1901, the Antikythera mechanism shattered assumptions about ancient technology. This intricate bronze device, roughly the size of a shoebox, contains at least 30 interlocking gears, some with teeth so fine they could only be seen under microscopes. Designed to predict celestial events like eclipses decades in advance, its sophistication rivals 18th century clockwork. But here's the real brain twister. This computer wasn't found in Alexandria or Athens, where scholars might have crafted it. It lay in the wreck of a Roman cargo ship off the coast of a tiny Greek island, surrounded by marble statues and glassware, ordinary trade goods. How did something this advanced wind up as mere ballast in a merchant's hold? The mechanism's creation is only half the mystery. Transporting it safely would have been a nightmare. Bronze gears this precise couldn't tolerate temperature swings or salt spray. Even slight corrosion would have jammed their movements. Yet this device traveled hundreds of nautical miles, likely from Rhodes, where its astronomical calculations align with the works of Hipparchus. Imagine the precautions: layers of oiled cloth, shock-absorbing straw packing, maybe even a sealed wooden case with wax seals to keep out moisture. All this for an object with no obvious military or commercial value, suggesting it was priceless to whoever commissioned it. What really sends chills down historians' spines are the missing pieces. The recovered fragments account for barely a third of the original device. Was this mechanism part of a larger system? Ancient texts hint at lost technologies. Cicero wrote of a bronze sphere built by Archimedes that replicated planetary motions. Could the Antikythera be a fragment of a grander tradition, where complex machines weren't rarities but tools as common as astrolabes would later become? The shipwreck itself adds layers to the puzzle. The vessel was massive for its time, over 40 meters long, carrying looted Greek art to Rome. But hidden among the statues, divers found something odd: corroded lumps initially dismissed as scrap metal. X-rays later revealed these were more gears, possibly from additional mechanisms. Were the Romans smuggling more than art? Did they understand the true value of what they'd plundered? Or was this device just another curiosity in a rich man's collection? Perhaps the most unsettling clue lies in the mechanism's design. Its gear ratios encode the exact length of a year: 365, 242 days, a figure more accurate than the Julian calendar used in Rome at the time. This precision implies centuries of observational data, yet no records of such a project survive. It's as if the Antikythera is a single page torn from a library we never knew existed. Standing before its reconstructed fragments in Athens' National Archaeological Museum, you're left with a vertiginous thought. This wasn't just a machine. It was a message in a bottle from a lost age of invention, whispering that our ancestors' ingenuity might still outpace our ability to comprehend it. And somewhere on the ocean floor, or perhaps melted down into coins and cannonballs, other fragments wait, still keeping their ancient secrets. Tucked among the Voynich manuscript's cryptic herbal pages lies an illustration so bizarre it defies even this book's reputation for enigmas: a fleet of wheeled carts, each bearing a single uprooted plant. These aren't crude sketches of medieval wagons. The vehicles hover somewhere between biology and machinery, their spoked wheels fused to stems like grotesque hybrid creatures. Some plants appear to grow directly from axles, others balance precariously on platforms rigged with pulleys and levers. The most unsettling detail, the roots. They dangle beneath the carts like tendrils, some coiled around the wheels as if actively propelling them forward. This isn't transport, it's symbiosis. The mystery deepens when you compare these drawings to actual medieval technology. 15th century Europe used simple wooden carts with solid wheels functional, but nothing resembling the Voynich's intricate designs. The manuscript's vehicles feature lightweight frames and delicate spokes, more reminiscent of 19th century bicycles than anything from the era of chainmail and ox-drawn plows. Even stranger, some carts lack draft animals or handles, implying self-propulsion. Could these be allegorical representations? Alchemical texts often used symbolic machinery to depict processes like distillation or fermentation. The plants might represent volatile substances, their movement a metaphor for chemical transformation, but the illustrations resist easy interpretation. Microscopic analysis reveals underdrawings showing gears and pivots, mechanical elements that wouldn't be out of place in Da Vinci's notebooks, yet predate his work by decades. One cart even sports a helical screw mechanism, a device not documented in Europe until the Renaissance. Some researchers suggest the wheels might symbolize cyclical processes, like the stages of plant growth or planetary orbits. Others note that certain plants depicted, like the infamous Voynich sunflower, are New World species theoretically unknown to medieval Europe. If accurate, this could hint at lost botanical knowledge or even transatlantic contact centuries before Columbus. The most tantalizing clue lies in the text itself. Adjacent paragraphs, still undeciphered, are dense with repeating glyphs resembling alchemical symbols for distillation and sublimation. This has led theorists like botanist Arthur Tucker to propose the carts illustrate a forgotten extraction technique, perhaps using wheeled devices to crush herbs and collect their essences. Experiments with replica plant presses based on the drawings show they could have efficiently expressed oils or juices if anyone had thought to build them. Perhaps the truth lies between metaphor and lost invention. Medieval herbalists believed plants possessed virtues that could be physically transferred, a concept mirrored in the illustration's tangled roots and wheels. Maybe these carts weren't meant to be built but imagined, a blueprint for harnessing nature's energy through motion, where turning wheels became a kind of photosynthesis in reverse. Standing before these pages today, you're left with a haunting choice. Are you seeing the doodles of a delirious monk, or the first flicker of an idea too advanced for its time? The wheels keep turning, but the road they're on remains invisible. From the floating stones of Coral Castle to the celestial highways of the Sacsayhuamán lines, these 30 mysteries all whisper the same tantalizing question: how much of ancient history have we misunderstood? Whether it's the eerie precision of Puma Punku's andesite blocks, the ghostly logistics of the terracotta army's arrival, or the Antikythera mechanism's gears spinning centuries ahead of their time, a pattern emerges. These aren't just isolated curiosities, they're fractures in the timeline, moments where the past seems to wink at us with secrets we can't quite decipher. Lost technologies haunt these stories like echoes. The Olmec's basalt heads moved without leaving tracks, the Mycenaeans stacked cyclopean walls without mortar, and the builders of Derinkuyu mastered subterranean engineering with techniques we've yet to fully replicate. Then there are the supernatural claims, Edward Leedskalnin's whispered secrets of anti-gravity, the Rapa Nui's belief that Moai walked with Mana, the Shona legends of birdmen lifting stones with singing ropes. Even when science offers plausible explanations, a sliver of doubt remains. Did our ancestors know something we don't, or were their achievements simply the product of patience and ingenuity pushed to staggering extremes? But the real heart of these mysteries lies in their impossible logistics. The Great Pyramid's granite coffers hauled 500 miles without cranes. Nan Madol's megaliths floated across shark-filled waters. The Nazca lines plotted without aerial views, each one a puzzle where the how feels as mystifying as the why. And that's what keeps us coming back. These aren't just footnotes in history, they're invitations to rethink what humans are capable of when necessity, faith, or sheer stubbornness collide with the limits of their world. So now it's your turn. Which of these enigmas lingers in your mind? The wheeled plants of the Voynich manuscript, the submerged highways of Malta's cart ruts? Or something even stranger? Drop your thoughts below. And if you're hungry for more ancient riddles, hit subscribe. The past isn't done surprising us yet.